Hey, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing? So depending on when I put this video, y'all may be thinking, man, this guy only owns one sweatshirt. But no, I'm busy today. I'm cranking out a bunch of videos, so that way we have a ton of videos over the week, because y'all know I got a full-time job. I can't be doing this all day. So we're cranking out the videos so that way you guys have a bunch to watch over the next couple weeks and hopefully learn a couple things along the way. So in today's video, we're talking elements, elemental abilities, because here's the thing. Genshin Impact is built all around the elements. So if you don't know which ones work together well, what they do, or what they don't work together well against, y'all are missing out. So before we get into the video, just a reminder, guys, go ahead and follow us over at Twitch, twitch.tv/xjazz207. I do stream there 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, around 8 p.m. EST, and we're playing Genshin Impact all the time. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. That way you know when I put out a new video and helps show the support to the channel. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So, first up, let's talk the basics in terms of elementals. Now, I'm sure you guys all know this, but I just want to cover it just in case, because I'm sure there's some people out there who don't. Maybe you're just coming into Genshin, brand stinking new, you've never seen a video before, you've never played the game, and you want to know what's the deal with these elements. So here's the deal. There are 7 elements in Genshin Impact. Most of them you probably already know if you've been in the gaming world for any amount of time, but here they are. So you got your wind, which is Anemo, you got earth, which is Geo, lightning, which is Electro, nature, which is Dendro, but we're not going to be talking about that one because it's not currently in the game yet. We got water, which is Hydro, fire, which is Pyro, and ice, which is Cryo. And I'll be honest, guys, I mix these up a lot because I come from a Pokemon background, so if I end up calling, Pyro, fire, just they're the same thing, but this is the terms that the game uses to identify them. So with that being said, each character has one of these elements as their vision or their power. And some of these, or I should say all of these, except for Dendro, which again, we're not talking about right yet, they have some kind of effect when you use them by themselves in the game. So for example, Geo is all about defense, so it's going to make enemies deal less damage. Enemies also may drop a shield from time to time, which increases the defense on your units. Electro has the ability where if you attack an enemy in water, that attack may spread to the next enemy and the next enemy and so on, just like it would electricity and water. Water gives the enemy the wet status, which we'll talk about in a minute. Pyro burns the enemy, dealing them continuous damage. A lot of these are kind of exactly what you would think. And Cryo slows down the enemy's movement speed. So nothing really shocking here. It's kind of what you'd expect from a game based around elements. A lot of these elements are the same that we've seen over the years. But these things can also negatively affect you if you are hit with these same elements. So with Electro, it's going to weaken your elemental burst talent energy usage. With water or Hydro, you're going to increase the cooldown timer on your abilities. Pyro, it's going to burn you, and again, it's going to damage you until it's gone. And Cryo, your character is going to use more stamina when dodging or running, so keep that in mind. But the fun part about Genshin Impact is that we can combine these elements, and with their powers combined, we make things better. So here are the combinations, which I have had up on screen for a little bit, which you've probably read, but let's go over them. So first of all, with this chart, we're going to be looking at the right side of the chart first. And here's how the chart works. It doesn't explicitly say on this chart. However, if you go to different sources, they'll give you these numbers separately. So first thing you need to know is there are elements that have a no order requirement and elements that have an order requirement. So what do I mean by that? If you use certain elements in a certain order, they will perform better than others. And then others, it doesn't matter which way it works. So how do we know which? Well, basically anything that's coming out of electricity or electro, lightning, anything that comes out from that center. So any of the lines spurting off, doesn't matter which way you go. Effect is going to be the same. If you're going in the circle, it matters, and we're going to get to that in a second. So first up, let's go over the no order requirement abilities. So first up, we got Overloaded, and Overloaded comes together when you combine Electro and Pyro, and you're going to be doing a large area of effect, Pyro damage. Very devastating, very strong. Right now, this is currently like what everyone's saying you want to use if you want the most damage possible. Next up, we got Superconduct, which is Electro and Cryo. You have a large area of effect of cryo damage, and you reduce the enemy's speed. And last up, in terms of the no order requirement elements, we have Electrocharge, which you get when you combine Electro and Hydro, which will deal electric damage over a period of time. This one is super fun to use and very easy to use if you're fighting enemies in water, because you only need one unit because they're already wet. Those, you don't need an order. Whatever order you put them in, Electric Pyro, Electro Cryo, Electro Hydro, doesn't matter what order, it's going to perform the same. However, if we go around the circle, if you are going clockwise, you will get I think it's like a 2x benefit in terms of damage. However, if you go counterclockwise, you will only be receiving 1.5x damage. So still getting a damage boost, but not as much as if you go clockwise. So because of this, if you're using elements from the outer circle, you do have to be aware when you're doing your skills rotation, because if you do it wrong, you're losing out on damage. So what exactly combos do we have? Well, first of all, we have Frozen, which is when a enemy is afflicted with wetness or hydro, and then is frozen using cryo. It's going to freeze the enemy in place. Very useful for crowd control. I will say that's one of the main combos I use on my personal team. Very useful to have. Continuing going around the circle, we got Melt. So Melt is when we combine the Pyro and Cryo elements. So if you have an enemy that's afflicted with the Cryo element and you apply the Pyro element, it's going to do 2x damage, and then the other way around is 1.5. You get Melt. Next one is Hydro and Pyro. If you go water to fire, you're going to do more damage. If you go fire to water, less damage. So works exactly the way you would think if you've done any elemental gaming in the past. Works exactly the way you think. However, most players would think that if you use fire against water, it would deal less damage. It does deal less, just less than the 2x, 1.5. Keep that in mind. You're not actually doing less than 1x damage, basically. And then, of course, we have the left side of the chart. And the left side is basically, if you're using Animo or Wind, any kind of swirling is going to spread whatever effect is currently on a unit and spread it to everyone else. So if you have an enemy that is inflicted with Pyro or is burning, and then you use Swirl, all the enemies afflicted by the Swirl will then become burning. So it's a really nice way to spread out your elements if you're spreading out damage, or you want to spread out your wet, or your cryo, your freezing, whatever it is. You can then use Swirl to kind of crowd control them up and spread those elements around. So now that we know how the elements are used and how they combine well with each other, how do we go about applying that knowledge? Well, first thing, when you're first starting out in the game, you're probably going to have one of each element just because that's how you receive characters. But once you start unlocking more characters, you'll be able to have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to team building. So when you do have a roster that you can start team building with, here's where you want to come. If you don't know how to get to this, this is in the party creation tab up in the top right corner. Let's start where you would be if you're a beginner and you only have one of each element. You're going to have the any 4 unique elements buff, which is all elemental resistance is up by 15%. Now, moving on. Basically, when you're team building, you want to have 2 units of the same element on a team in order to receive some of these elemental resistance buffs. So, like my team, I have Razor and Fischl, which are both electro characters. So I have the high voltage buff. And all these buffs are going to decrease some of the effectiveness of what it is good against, if that makes sense. So, for example, I'm going to be affected by Hydro for 40% less time. If you have 2 fire units or pyro units, you're going to be affected by cryo for 40% less time. Water is affected by pyro, and so on and so forth, the way you would normally think it would work. But you also get another benefit. So, like for me, Superconduct, Overload, and Electrocharge have a 100% chance to generate an electro-elemental particle. So this is really great because my team has ways of creating Superconduct as well as Electrocharge. So my main DPS unit, which is Razor, really wants a lot of his skills to be triggered because that's how he gets the most damage. He is my main DPS unit. So because of this, there's a lot of synergy in my team. So you can use these elemental resistances to help you build your team. If you had 2 pyro units, for example, you get an increased attack by 25%, which is huge. Fire units already put out a ton of damage, so that's really big. You got something like soothing water, so you increase incoming healing by 30%. So the way you build your team, let's say for cryo users, for example, you increase the crit rate against enemies that are frozen or affected by cryo by 15%. So if you wanted to build like a heavy crit build team, ice would be perfect, or cryo would be perfect for that. You know, throw a Hydra user in there, get them frozen, or use 2, like you're using 2 ice units, get them all freezing, and then deal some massive damage with your crits. If you already have a high crit percentage, you stack this extra 15% on it, which is basically free on that team. You're doing tons and tons of damage. And if you want, you don't have to do a 2-1-1 team. You can do 2 and 2, however you want to do it. But these bonuses are free, and it is very beneficial to use 2 elements that are the same in a team. So guys, that is going to do it for the video today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. Let me know down in the comments section, who are you guys using for your team? I'd be interested to know, to see who players are running. That's going to do it for me today. If you want some more content from me, you can give me a follow over on twitch.tv/xjazz207, and you can subscribe here on YouTube. But guys, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.